That's how sharp I am tonight. Let me see here. Let's see who's in here. All right. Let's see. Huh? Rhonda from the D. Supreme Dow. Good to see you. I see Hodges Cobb from Chester, Pennsylvania. Joseph from Chicago. You know, Joseph, I feel guilty. I should have more events in Chicago. And I told my friend today, I said, we're going to do something in Chicago because I live here. I live right on the north part of the south side. When I first moved here, I didn't tell a lot of people because honestly, I didn't want to get into a lot of complex relationships. I like relating with people, but when you got a whole lot of people coming at you, it's hard to focus, and you lose touch with who you are. You lose yourself. And so in order for me to make sure I always keep in touch with myself, I sometimes end up becoming a little reclusive. And so that's actually my little issue that I've been working through for years in terms of kind of dealing with that much attention. I love it. I love it. I appreciate it. I'm so honored by it. But sometimes it's a lot, because unfortunately, and you'll know this when you start your business and you start succeeding, you'll have a lot of people that will know you, but then they're gonna want things from you. They're almost never gonna show up and offer you things. 99 times out of 100, they're asking for something, asking, 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 and it doesn't mean I don't want to do it. It's just that you can give away so much of yourself that there's nothing left. There's nothing left for your kids, nothing left for you, nothing left to keep your peace of mind. I mean, literally, you can feel like little pieces of your brain are being just kind of chipped away. And then what'll happen is you'll do 100 things for 100 people, and then there'll be that 101st person who'll say, "I asked him to do something for me, and he didn't do it. He ain't shit." And so you'll never get to the point where you can make everybody happy. That's like trying to drink the entire ocean. It doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying though, but it does mean that that does become a complication, especially once you become a person that's successful. That's why I always tell people don't brag about how much money you got. I don't care if you're doing well or not. I mean, if you're doing well, that's good, but don't brag about it. Don't go flossing, trying to drive the fanciest car, have the nicest whatever, the biggest house and all that, because as soon as people see that, there's a natural thing, a natural human instinct where they're going to see you as a person they can go to get resources. So the people that you think are your friends, they really just want to be around you because they like you. They're actually around you because they might be able to get something from you. Doesn't mean everybody thinks that way. I'm not saying that at all. But let's say that you got it like that. You go on vacation with your best friend and you drop $10,000 on the vacation. You say, "Hey, let's go to Hawaii together. I'll pay for it. It's my treat." Because one day all of you will be multimillionaires, so you'll have it like that. So let's say you splurge and you go spend 10,000 taking your friend to Hawaii. Well, let's say your friend comes home and they need $1,000 to pay the rent. Well, they're going to be thinking, well, of course $1,000 is nothing to her because she just dropped 10,000 going to Hawaii. So why would it be a big deal for me to ask for $1,000? But they may not understand that you might not want to put your $1,000 to help them pay the rent. You might have wanted to use the money for something else. Do you understand? And also another interesting thing that just came up in terms of thoughts when I was sharing this example is, a lot of people think that in order to build wealth, you have to really think like a miser. You have to just act like you're broke all the time, never spend money on anything, count every penny, just be real anal about it. I don't believe that. I think that you can certainly, enjoy your money. I think that's okay. I think you should. I just think that the key is moderation. The key is making sure that you always have some form of healthy investment habit, investment protocol that allows you to build wealth as you spend money. You understand? So, when people get, for example, if you land on $1,000, I don't think you have to invest the whole thousand in order to build wealth. Basically, just take just even 5 or 10% of that, even 5 or 10% of that will make a huge difference in your life. So anyway, one thing I want to mention to you guys again as we get started is I want to reiterate that if you are interested in staying in the class and you'd like to join the Black Wealth Academy, you can join the Black Wealth Academy at the link I'm about to give you. I know I've mentioned it several times, but this is something I definitely want to do because I know that it has value. I wouldn't offer it to you if it wasn't a tremendous value. It's better than anything you'll get on a college campus. And here's the thing: as you implement all these ideas and this ambition that you have from what you learned in the boot camp, you got to understand that you will, basically end up in a scenario where you're gonna have to be pushed to implement some of this. And so, what we do with the academy is we help you through boot camp style learning to continue. implementing what it is you plan to do. We become almost like coaches, if you will. We hold you accountable, we push you, all that good stuff, and that's important because here's the thing. I was talking to a PhD student today, and giving her advice on how to get done with her dissertation. Getting a PhD is it's like being hazed. I mean, if you're getting one from a tough school, now some people get these PhDs they can get on the weekends and all that. I'm not knocking it, but it's not the same process. It's like the difference between like in sororities or fraternities, you got people that really went through the hell of pledging, and then you got people who signed a piece of paper and paid some money when they were 35. And I'm not knocking one way or the other, but it's a different process. So she was going through this horrible thing, and I told her, I said, when you're going through something like that, whether it's getting a PhD or building a business or anything, you're almost always going to feel like a failure. You're almost always going to feel like you're never going to get to the finish line. You're almost always going to feel stressed out and frustrated and mad and feel like you're wasting your time. And I said, so the key is to just kind of shut down all of that if you can, and focus on one simple idea. Just do a little bit every day. A little bit every day, because wealth accumulation is consistent with other forms of accumulation. It's consistent with achievement accumulation. When a person has a long resume full of accolades and all that stuff, which I get a decent little resume now because I'm 44, I've been working hard. All those accolades is a culmination of little tiny day-to-day efforts over time. I can show you, that I've been on, for example, I've been on national TV probably 300, 400 times, but I didn't go on it all at once. I didn't try to do it all in a week. I would just do one and then another one and then another one, then another and another and another, another. Next thing I know, I've got 300, 400. You understand? So when you think about the accumulation of success, think about the incremental stages and also think like an investor. Always think like an investor. What does that mean? That means that anything that you put out, any resources that you're sharing, whether it's your time, your money, your love, your focus, your relationships, always think about it in terms of putting something in today that is going to get you a payoff or some benefit later on. Not just a financial payoff, though. It doesn't have to be financial. It has to be in terms of what they call utility. Utility in economics is basically overall well being in your life. That's the goal. And really, when you think about investing, you want to think about it in a holistic standpoint, not just in terms of money. So let me go through some more. I see Philippe from LA. LA in the house. Love it. West Coast, speaking up. Okay, Crystal Foster from New York. Heard from Crystal today. Chris from Alexandria, Virginia. Monique from Dallas, the most racist city ever. Let's see here. Uh, okay, so now I got a question here. Monique says, Dr. Watkins, when investing in someone else's business like you did in Financial Juneteenth, can you answer the question below? For example, if I invest 50,000 for 10%, does that mean that the company makes 10,000 a month? Do I, as an investor, get 1,000 each month? Um, well, basically, being an investor at a certain percentage means you get a percentage of the profits. And you also own a percentage of the revenue, but some of that revenue may go back into the company. So what you probably want to do is talk to the owners about an understanding on how much of the revenue is going to go as a dividend, meaning you get to take it and go, spend it on something else, versus how much of that revenue is going to be utilized as a for reinvestment. So, for example, with Financial Juneteenth, which actually that is not someone else's company, that's my company. We started Financial Juneteenth. My brother and I. We try to own everything everything we do. We try to own it unless we can't own it, meaning we can't afford it or it's too risky or whatever. But we try to own everything because we're thinking about our kids and grandkids. My brother hasn't even had kids. We're planning for his children that are not yet born. We want them to be able to start the race with a head start. So basically, and he's younger than me, by the way. He's 12 years younger than me. And so with Financial Juneteenth, what we had is we have an understanding that every time we get money, a certain percentage will go toward, dividends. We give each other information on spending. Like he'll tell me how much we spend on technology, how much we spend on people, how much is left, and then he'll always take 10% of the total revenue and put it in retained earnings. That means it's going in the bank. It's our stockpile. We're stacking cash, stacking capital, so that when we get that next bright idea, I can say, hey man, why don't we take 5,000 out of retained earnings and invest in this new project? You understand? So you want to do that. So you want to make that understanding in the beginning, though, because companies and shareholders always fight. Managers and shareholders constantly fight over dividends, because basically the companies, if you just aggregate. Sorry, I'm trying to put my shoe on. If you aggregate that to a large corporation, a multi-billion-dollar company, where the dividend fight comes into play, is that when you have a company that's growing really fast, when you have a growth stock, a growth company, you don't want to pay a lot of dividends because that's taking cash out of the company. But a growth company is a great place to put your money. If you have a company that's growing really fast, you don't want to take all that money and waste it. You want to put that money right back in, pump it right back in, raise more capital. Because by being a growth company, what that means is that you have a lot of investment opportunities. You have a lot of things you can put your money into that'll get you more money later on. Okay, and so growth companies are like flowers that need lots of water. And the liquidity, money's called liquidity for a reason, because money is like the water that you're watering the plant with, and the plant's just sucking down all the water because it's growing so fast. It's a plant, it's got uses for all that water. But there gets to be a point where the company is not growing anymore. The company might still be making money, but it hits a different part of its life cycle. What they call it can become what they call a cash cow. A cash cow is a company where all the businesses are pretty well defined and established. There aren't many more growth opportunities. They've kind of explored all the options that are out there, and basically the company's generating tons and tons of revenue, but they don't have anything they want to invest in unless they go into a new industry or something like that. And sometimes you don't want that. So what happens is there's usually a fight in a lot of these companies where the shareholders come back and say, okay, back when you were a young company and you were growing really fast, we wanted you to keep our money. We wanted you to take the profits and reinvest the profits because we knew you had growth opportunities and we knew you knew what to do with that money. But now you're a cash cow. Now you're doing good. You're bringing in revenue. Keep doing that. But when you get that revenue, when you get that profit, give it to me. Pay me a dividend. Increase your dividend so I can take my money and put it elsewhere. I could either spend it, or which means use it for consumption, or I can take it somewhere else and put it into another business. If I own part of a railroad is kind of a stable, almost borderline dying industry for the most part. It depends on how you look at it. When airplanes came along, railroads became less relevant. So basically, railroads, radio stations, things like that tend to maybe be cash cow kinds of companies. They're not really going to grow that much, and so you might take the money from your railroad stock or from geez, the radio stock. Thank you. I was looking for the right word. Your radio stock, and you may put that into a .com. You may say, hey, you know what? The radio is doing okay, but it's not going to grow much. But the internet is booming, so I'm going to put some of my dividend money into a .com. So that's kind of what the conversation is about dividends. So you want to really talk to your investors, to talk to them about that, and also as far as reviewing financial statements, you probably, if you're investing in somebody else's company, you probably want to ask them who is your accountant, and or maybe we can agree on who the accountant's going to be, and we can also agree that the accountant's going to send everybody a monthly report so everything is transparent. You want transparency, especially when it comes to your damn money. You always want transparency. In fact, just today, I'm feeling passionate about this issue just because of some things I saw this week that bothered me. You should always have information about where your money is going, period. So transparency should be something they understand. If they have a hard time with transparency, then you probably shouldn't invest your money with that person. I had a very interesting discussion about that with Minister Louis Farrakhan when we were in Arizona at an economic development gathering. He had 9 economists, myself and 8 other people in a room, and we were talking about a long-term economic plan for Black America. Now, the Nation of Islam, those are just some bad brothers, very smart, very sharp. They do research. They have PhDs in their organization. They were taking notes on what we were talking about. And one of the things that I mentioned to the minister, which he actually knew already, so I was actually telling him something he already knew, is I said, when you're gathering other people's money, like, so for example, if you build a black bank, because we had conversations about that kind of stuff. I can't divulge everything that happened, but those are some of the things we talked about. I said you have to make sure that you have complete transparency when it comes to other people's money. You can't take people's money and then not answer questions if they ask you about the money. And but here's the thing, though. The minister he answered that very well. He mentioned that after the Million Man March, he said we took all of the money that we made. We had an independent accounting review of all this money, and and every penny was accounted for, and all the information was made public. And so the point of the matter is that when you start something with somebody, you take other people's money or you're giving money. Understand that it becomes a more serious game at that point. You're putting your relationship on the line. Number one, if you're investing with a friend or a family member, but then also you could be putting your freedom on the line. You're taking money from other people. You mismanage the money. You take a little bit of money out of your business bank account and use it to get your hair and nails done, or use it to pay your rent. That when that catches up with you, then suddenly you become a criminal. And when you become a criminal, you end up like that poor brother who used to work with Bishop Eddie Long. I can't remember his name, but he used to this brother used to go around the country and go on TV shows and talk about how, being a young investment guru, and and people talk about how brilliant he was, and I think he was brilliant. He's very smart, but unfortunately, he collected a lot of money from these churches, and they invested in his project, and suddenly things people weren't able to get their money. Suddenly, they were calling his office, and he wasn't answering the phone. And here's the thing: he's living in a multi-million-dollar apartment. He's driving fancy cars. His wife is going on expensive vacations with him. And people were like, okay, where's this money going? And so the SEC gets involved, the Securities and Exchange Commission gets involved, and next thing you know, he's got federal charges on him. And the thing about federal charges that you want to be careful with is that the government don't play when it comes to that money. That's why I don't take money from the government. I just don't. I'm like, I'm going to work and build and try to have. I met with my accountant yesterday. We met for 7 hours talking about where all the money was going. And when you own everything yourself and you're not in crazy complex business relationships, it's a little easier to figure things out. So you take money from the government, they treat you worse if you steal someone's money, or if you steal their money. They treat you worse for stealing money than they would treat you if you murder somebody. And that's a fact. I know I have friends who are in federal prison right now. I'm talking about smart people. There's one lady I met who literally used to be friends with Michelle Obama. Michelle was like her girl. Hey Michelle, how you doing, girl? Like that tight. And she got caught up in something that involved a government grant. And next thing you know, she's going to prison for 9 years. She's going to be away from her husband, away from her children. The government does not give a damn about what life you had going on before you went to prison. And you know what else? Guess how many of her Harvard educated, Michelle Obama politically connected friends are calling her back now that she's been hit with the label of felon? Zero. She told me, she said, Dr. Boyce, nobody's talking to me now. None of my so-called friends are even talking to me anymore. So be very, very careful when it comes to money. You just have to be really, really careful. Okay, and I could just tell you more stories. Bernard Madoff. Do you remember Madoff? The guy who ran the Ponzi scheme. He made a lot of money, but apparently the federal government decided he was running a Ponzi scheme. They sent him to prison for 30, 40 years. Do you know his secretary also went to prison? His secretary. And I think that they just concluded that she benefited too. Maybe she covered up some records or whatever. But I just have a hard time imagining that his secretary would really know all the details and the illegalities of what they were doing. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she knew more. But it's just a mess. Another example. Jesus, see, I'm coming up with all these examples. I knew a drug dealer who had relatives that would help him with the money and launder the money and stuff like that. And do you know when they sent him to prison on that RICO charge, which actually the whole government of Chicago needs to be hit with a RICO charge right now because they murdered that kid, Laquan McDonald, and all of them covered it up. So really, the mayor and the state's attorney, all these people need to be hit with a RICO charge. But anyway, they hit this drug dealer with a RICO charge, so they sent him to prison for 14 life sentences, all over the money. It was all about the money. They didn't have no murders on him. They found him with no drugs. It was all about the money and the conspiracy. That's what they pulled. That's what the whole case was. Sent him to prison for 14 life sentences. They also sentenced his mother, his sister, and his brother, and several of his friends, just because they touched the money. So just be very, very careful when it comes to money. The government don't play on that stuff. I see Malcolm from ATL, love it. Greg from Cleveland, all right. Home of the second best basketball player in the world. That was a jab. I'm so messing with you. I can't wait to see that game on Christmas. Hodges Cobb. Hi, Dr. Boyce. How can I buy stock overseas, especially Australia? I did my homework. You know what? I would look into, if you want to buy in Australia. I don't know the name of the stock market that operates in Australia, but I know they have one, and I know that every market, nearly all markets allow, or major markets anyway, allow investors from other countries to buy things in those countries. So a lot of the American stock market, the New York Stock Exchange, is owned by foreigners. The Chinese are notorious savers. They do a very good job of saving their money, and what they do is they end up buying up just big chunks of the United States. So make no mistake about it. Pretty soon we will be deeply in debt to China in so many ways. So Australia, I don't know what the Australian stock market is called right offhand, but you would just look it up, and literally I would just Google how to buy stock in Australia, how to buy stock in the Australian stock market, and then your answer should be right there. People are always happy to get your money. There's HU all day. She loves Howard. All right, I love Howard too. Malcolm is a Southern University alum. I love HBCUs. I wanted to attend an HBCU and I wanted to teach in an HBCU, but I didn't have the money. I couldn't afford to go to an HBCU, and I had bad grades coming out of high school, so none of them schools would have gave me a scholarship or anything. And but I love HBCUs, and I think that it's kind of a mixed thing on one hand, because and this relates to ownership and things like that. On one hand, HBCUs are clearly the best places for black people to get an education most of the time. It's one of the few places where you can be treated like a human being and not just like the black kid in class. And so really, if I'm sending my girls to a college, to a university, and they're choosing between Harvard and Spelman, I'm going to send them to Spelman. Because I think that what you get socially can be just as valuable as what you get educationally. In fact, if you're not getting something healthy socially, then it's going to be harder for you to absorb what you're receiving educationally. HBCUs top my list in all those categories because they got the same books. Their professors are just as smart. All the resources are right there. How much you learn in college depends on how much you learn in college. It doesn't, just being at a school and being in those halls does not make you a naturally smarter person. Look at George Bush. He went to Harvard for undergrad and Yale for graduate school, and he's still an idiot. But one of the things I think we have to really think about as well is, what were HBCUs designed for? Who really owns and controls HBCUs? Were they really built to truly empower black people? I don't really know if that's the case. I see some of the HBCUs like Howard University that were actually founded by people who are not black. Spelman, not founded by someone who's black. And so what happens is, I think, and throughout our history, if you look back and you look at the course of our wealth building and how we got to where we are today, you have so many pockets of influence that have occurred where we have people that come off as kind of like benevolent benefactors. They're like, oh, these poor black people, they're doing so bad. Let me help them out. Let me take care of them. Well, unfortunately, sometimes somebody who's hooking you up and taking care of you also becomes your pimp. Basically, what you see in many cases is that it's similar to what happens in Africa. You have people that went to Africa and said, we're going to civilize the natives, with Christianity. We're going to give them a Bible and some food, and we're going to control their thinking. We're going to make them think like us, and if they don't think like us, then we're not going to give them food anymore, right? So you have to just be real careful about where your influences are. If you attend an HBCU, or if you're an alumni of an HBCU, I would go into certain departments and I would really see how many of their professors are actually African American. There are in the sciences and in business schools, you see large pockets of people who are not African American, and some of them don't respect black people. I did an interview with Kentucky State University a few years ago, and I sat with a professor from Italy, and I remember listening to him talk about the students, and it was interesting because I think that he thought that because we were both PhDs that we both kind of think the same way. I don't know what this guy was thinking. Maybe he'd been drinking, but he literally talked about these black kids like they were just the dumbest pieces of shit you've ever seen in your life. Like he really talked about them like they had no value, like that they shouldn't be here. They're not very smart. They're not very capable. And I remember thinking, how is somebody ever going to really elevate and be empowered if they're being taught by somebody who doesn't believe that they have the capacity or the capability to be empowered? So just keep that in mind when you evaluate institutions. Look at the core and who owns what, stuff like that. Let's see. Tressa's asking for the discount code for the Black Wealth Academy. Let's see. One code that I have now that I can give you guys, and this is one word: Academy 20. The code Academy 20 will get you 20% off the Black Wealth Academy. So I'll put this in the chat box too, so that you have it in case you lose that. Okay, so I hope you guys will check out the Black Wealth Academy. I think it's truly the greatest thing. Like, I really wish somebody had created something like that for me when I first started trying to do my independent entrepreneur thing. In fact, we actually have students who do the Black Wealth Bootcamp in the academy instead of going to college. And I had a parent ask me that. She said, "I want my daughter to go do your program before we consider sending her to college." And I was a little concerned. I was kind of like, and it really made me question, just going to college and the value of it. So I thought about it, for a really long time, and I said, actually, I think it's a great idea because we're going to give your daughter a culturally authentic education. So she's learning from black people on how to be black. We don't really teach you how to be a white person. We're not good at that. We don't teach you how to be an employee either. We're not very good at that. So we give you culturally authentic education as well as education that's designed to help black people build things. That's why our slogan is "Don't climb the corporate ladder, build one," because black people have to build things. The easiest way to be a boss in this world, the easiest way to be a boss is to create something and make yourself the boss of it. How you were little and you would create like a little clubhouse and you say, "I'm the king of this club." right? Well, I mean, it's probably seemed kind of weird, but maybe you were onto something. But the thing at that point is that you have to figure out, how am I going to get people to want to be in this club? And that's kind of what I did. I when I started off doing the stuff that I do now, understand this. When I first started off as a public intellectual, public whatever I am, um, I didn't. Nobody knew who I was. I mean, you're gonna laugh about this. I used to be on this listserv with other scholars back when I was younger, and I used to write my articles, and I used to think, how can I get people to read my articles? I know they're good, but no one will read them. And I didn't know how to get into the media. I didn't know how to get wide distribution on anything that I put out. So I would write these articles, and I would put the articles. The listserv was basically like email, where everybody would email the same address, and everybody got the same message back in those days before Facebook. And so I would write my little articles, and I would put them on the listserv, hoping that people would read them. And I get a couple people who write back and say, that was really good. That was really nice. And then I had people though who were annoyed, who were just like, what is this guy doing? Who is he? And why are you bothering me? And then I started doing stuff. I finally started getting on TV, and I would tell people, again, I believe you should do this when you're building your brand for yourself or for your company. Tell people what you're doing. Always tell them what you're up to, so that people in your space know that you're active. They know what you're all about. They identify you with an idea, right? So I started telling people, hey, I'm going to be on. First it was local TV, local radio. Then it became national. It's like, oh, I'll be on CNN, blah blah blah. And unfortunately, that's when I learned a little bit more about things like jealousy. So I had some colleagues who were just kind of like, I don't want to hear that shit. And so eventually I got booted off the list. The person who ran the list, this lady at Rutgers University, I think her name was DT Ogilvy or something. I didn't like her very much. She was kind of mean. But anyway, she called me, and she was like, I'm sure you have plenty of other places to put your work, so we're gonna ask you to leave the list. And my feelings were hurt. I was kind of sad. I was kind of like, well, what did I do? I was just telling people what I'm doing, and maybe I was a nuisance, but the thing was, when I first got started, my point was, I didn't have an outlet. I didn't have anywhere, to really go in terms of putting my stuff out there. There was no big deal to be around Dr. Boyce Watkins and to work with him, because nobody cared about that. So, but the thing was, I would take ownership of things. I would create things and say, well, this may not be anything, but it's mine. I own this, right? So I start a website. This is my website. I start a company. This is my company. The company ain't got no revenue, no buildings, no resources, not even a cardboard box, but damn it, it's mine, and I'm proud of that. And what I found was that I felt good about owning something. I said, if I can make this thing worth something, if I can make this go-kart move, then this is going to be mine. I won't have to share this. I won't have to beg anybody for anything. I can make myself whatever. If I can learn how to make a movie, I can. If I want to be a movie star, I could be a movie star. I just got to get people to watch the movie, right? So I took that approach, like the little kid who creates the treehouse and says, "I'm the king of this treehouse." Well, at that point, it's like, well, how do you get people to want to be in the treehouse, right? So I started off in my little apartment in Syracuse, New York, by myself. Living all alone, spent 99% of my time by myself. I moved there because I wanted to be in a place where I could focus on working hard. So all my 30s, all I did was work, and so I was building these things, doing these things, and trying to get the stuff off the ground. And then slowly but surely, good things started to happen. It was a matter of accumulation. Every day I just worked really hard. I kept a spreadsheet. I used to keep a spreadsheet where on this spreadsheet I would give myself 1 point for everything I did that got me closer to my long-term goal. Even if I didn't know what the goal was, because I knew one fundamental idea. The fundamental idea is that if you invest your time in working hard at something, something is going to change. Something good is probably going to happen if you continue to move forward in the same direction. If I keep walking north and I don't stop, then eventually I'm going to walk into the ocean. If I go west, I'm going to eventually get to California or Seattle or something, right? So I just focused on taking those little steps every day. And instead of setting my goals based on whether or not I was successful or not, because I didn't want to do that, because I knew that sometimes you try to do things and it doesn't work out, but you got to keep trying. So instead of focusing on how many successes I had, I would focus on how many efforts I put out, because I was like, well, if I tried to do 10,000 things to be successful, then at least a couple hundred of those things are going to do something good for my life. I just don't know which of these 10,000 is going to work, but I'm just going to do them all. So I would set my goal each month based on the number of investments I made in what I was trying to do. I had a little money to invest, so my job became my first source of capital, and I also had time to invest. So I would clear out my time. I didn't waste my time with foolishness. I didn't waste my time with dumb stuff. I didn't waste my time having friends that I didn't want to have around me. I didn't waste my time with dealing with people that were gonna just derail me from what I was trying to do. I didn't waste my time running around with random women. That's men get in so much trouble with that kind of thing. I focused on my goal. I fell in love with my dream, and my dream kept me company even when nobody else was around, even when the world had blocked me out and didn't care about what I was doing or where I was at, whether I lived or died that day. And so, you know what happened? Slowly but surely, things started to work out. Slowly but surely, things started to get better. Slowly but surely, that little club I created that nobody cared about, that got me booted out of this little group, suddenly people wanted to be part of that club. I had six people that I wanted, that I admired, that I looked up to when I first started. People I considered to be similar to what I was trying to be as a personal brand. And that was Cornel West, Michael Eric Dyson, Julianne Malveaux, Louis Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, and Jesse Jackson at that time. Those six people. Those are kind of the big six in my mind. There were others too, but those are kind of the top six. Do you know that after a while, every single one of those people reached out to me at some point? Every single one of those people said to somebody next to them, I want to know that guy. Who is that guy? Let me talk to him. Can you get him on the phone? Every one of them. I didn't reach out to any of them. I didn't go and say, "Hi, my name's Boyce. I'm trying to get ahead. Hey, can you hook me up, man? Can you?" I didn't do all that. I just focused on building. I focused on making tiny investments, and before you knew it, I had a club that I built that suddenly people wanted to be a part of. Do you understand? So build your own club. Make yourself the boss and work hard at it every day, and eventually people will come up, a young person will come up and say, I want to be like you when I grow up. How can you mentor me? Can I work for you? Can I be down with you? Can I just be your friend? Can I just be around you? It's an amazing experience. So that's the honest to God truth about what I went through. And I don't know. I hope it wasn't TMI, but I hope it helps you. If you feel like what you have isn't worth anything, you have to make it worth something. You build your go kart and you put an engine in it and you make that sucker go. Okay. Let's see. I see. Okay. Fahima Tabit. I hope I said that correct. Is from Virginia, and Fahima says that he. I think is it he or she? I hope it might be a she. So forgive me if I say it wrong. She says she likes the sweater. I want to say thank you very much, Fahima. Um, Aisha is from Orlando. Marvin is from Atlanta. Latoya is from Ontario. Very nice. I love Ontario. I bet it's colder than Chicago. Garfield from NYC. Raphael from Jersey City. Michael from Vegas. Nice. I was thinking about Vegas today. You know what I was thinking about when it came to Vegas? I brought up Vegas today because I was talking to my friend about Uber and how Uber, and this is something you probably want to think about. Oh my God. Oh God. Let me write this down. I gotta write it down. Literally, when a lightning bolt hits my head, I have to write down the idea because I really want to share this theory with people. And I'm sharing with you guys first. So if I say it wrong, forgive me. But because it's literally coming off the dome, I think that people should consider becoming Uber drivers as you make the transition to get off the corporate plantation. Let me tell you why. Uber is a freaking gold mine for so many black people all across the country. Southside Chicago, a place where jobs are just very hard to find. There are people I know making between $1,000 and $1,500 driving for Uber, working flexible schedules, or working with Uber in the time that they're not at their job. If you're trying to raise capital for your business, something like that could be a great way to add money to your bottom line. Or maybe letting somebody else use your car to be an Uber driver. I don't know if that's legal or not, but if you got that relative who's sitting on the couch and ain't got nothing to do, and you got a car, you say, okay, go drive Uber and we'll split the money. What that does is that brings in the extra cash, which allows you a lot more freedom to do the things you want to do. It makes it easier to pay certain bills. It also gives you a source of capital for that first business, but not just financial capital, but also capital in terms of time. Why? Because if I'm working, let's say I'm making 50K a year on the plantation. I hate the job, and I want to switch and I want to leave. The job sucks, so I want to do something different, but I'm not quite ready to run a business on my own. Well, maybe I transition into becoming an Uber driver, and my income remains the same, but the game changer is that I have flexibility now. I can be driving, or I can be between rides, I can be doing business on the phone. I could come home and work all day on my business on the days where I need to be with my business. And the Uber company isn't gonna ask me, "Hey boy, where are you at today? You're supposed to be at work." They're not gonna do that to me. Or I could drive extra on the weekends to make up for the fact that I have to do business from 9 to 5. I think that's a game changer. I'm dead serious. I really think Uber can be one of the keys to getting millions of black people off the corporate plantation. I believe it so much that I wish they had an affiliate program for people that to recommend people to become drivers, because I would be recommending thousands of black people to go drive an Uber. I've interviewed Uber drivers. If you go to my YouTube channel, you type Boyce Watkins and Uber, you'll see an interview I did with a brother where I was his first ride, and I asked him, "So why did you become a driver? What was the process like? How hard was it? What did you know?" He told me that he had a friend that was doing it, and his friend was making money, so he decided to try it, and all this other stuff. And I've noticed that in Chicago, especially on the South Side, 90% of my Uber drivers are white. I mean, excuse me, black. Sorry, I don't know where white came from. Black. 90% of my Uber drivers are black. So look into that as a way to make some extra money, either in conjunction with the money you're getting from the plantation, or as a substitute, as a slow transition. Because that's what you have to do. You're not gonna have a company that's gonna go from 0 to 60 overnight most of the time. So if you're looking to get off the plantation, maybe moving to a more flexible job, even if you make slightly less money, could be part of your transition process. So get that free time. Remember, time is more valuable than money. So don't ever underestimate the importance of your time. In fact, you're a CEO now, so your time is certainly more valuable than your money. All right, so let's see here. The black tech community in Chicago is growing and would be a great event. Yeah, Joseph, you should email me. I really should do something here. So maybe you can help me figure out what kind of event I want to do. Dr. Claude Anderson was here recently, and I think I'm going to try to talk him into doing something with me. But I don't know what I want to do yet. I need to quit being so antisocial. All right, it's because I work so much. Sometimes that does that to me. Let's see. Lionel says multitasking with you in the Cardinals Vikings game is going on in Phoenix. That's dedication. Wow, I love it. Well, I appreciate the fact that you're honoring me by listening to me while you're watching the Cardinal Vikings game. That was sad what happened to Adrian Peterson. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. Supreme Dow, Peace Stop. My father runs a nonprofit, the Black Writers Museum. Because of you and the boot camp, we've been able to propel our business via social media. All right, I'm so happy to hear that. You helped my father see the shadow costs that most miss. I greatly appreciate you. I appreciate you too. I only have a GED and still a success. Don't say only. Don't say only. You're an educated black man. Never ever let anybody convince you that you have to be in the walls of a university in order to be educated, or that being behind the walls of a university automatically makes you educated. I know a whole lot of people that went to school who were never educated. And also remember that there's a difference between education and knowledge. As a black person, knowledge is going to benefit you more, because knowledge will help you become a more authentic and more empowered black person. So just understanding things like how to be a good husband and a good father, understanding the needs of your community, how to build a business, how to raise your children in a certain way. That kind of education and knowledge can be far more valuable than what you learn in school. Because think about it, when we go to these white schools, they have us reading Edgar Allan Poe and learning all these Eurocentric concepts. And it's not to say that that's all a waste of time. I'm not saying that at all. But we got to understand that knowledge and education can come from all sources, not just from a school. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm talking to a brilliant man. I need education for you and your family. May I reach out to you about more classes? Absolutely. Send me an email. Join the academy. Or if anybody's interested in just looking at all the classes in the Black Business School, and we could really use your help. We're really, really pushing to make this thing strong. We're actually going to have a fundraising and membership drive pretty soon. And it's going very well. It's growing. We have thousands of members now. But I really want this thing to hit a critical mass of impact in the black community. I'm literally going to dedicate nearly all of my money, all of my time to making this thing go. I'm fighting with my friends who are in academia to get them to come over to the dark side, which is the good side in our case, dark skin. That's what I mean. To come over with us, and most of them are actually receptive. Most of them are looking for something better to do with their lives, and I'm saying, hey, you need to be home. You need to go natural. You need to be back with your people. You need to go black, and they understand it. It's not a hard argument. And so the goal is to eventually offer more classes that are directly related to the things that you need in order to be successful and empowered. So that's the objective. So there are plenty of great things we want to do with this. So I hope that you'll support us when the fundraiser begins and all this stuff. Monique Conley, Dr. Watkins, when investing in someone else's Wait, hold on. You know what? I already read your question, Monique. Sorry. Let's see. Lionel Young, question on the final assignment. How much does each person have to invest in the investment club? Is $5 to $10 enough? If so, what will we invest? He put the hashtag balling on a budget. Well, I understand that. Balling on a budget. That's the story of the black man's life. You know what, Lionel, I will say um, that you can invest whatever you want. I think $5 or $10 a month is okay. If that's what everybody agrees on, then go for it. If somebody invests more, then you want to make sure they have a bigger cut and all that stuff, and you have to have somebody that can do the math to make sure that they get what they deserve. But yeah, I don't see why $5 or $10 a month is a bad number. But remember this too. There are things that we spend $5 a day on. That we could easily cut out of our budget and use that money for investing. You'd be amazed how much money you could save just by taking the spare change out of your pocket and putting it into a jar every day. That'll actually pile up to a decent amount of money. I've been doing that for years. I still do that to this day. And I'll go in there and I'll have thousands of dollars in this big spare change jar just from literally every time coming home having the habit of emptying my pockets. Or other things like if you go to McDonald's for lunch every day, or if you go to Starbucks. So Starbucks, Starbucks coffee is really expensive. So, you spend $5 to $6 on Starbucks coffee. I mean, that can literally add up. If somebody took the money they spend on Starbucks coffee every day and put it in the stock market for 35, 40 years, they would have like well over $500,000, maybe as much as $700,000. So you're talking about, and that's wealth. That's capital. That's capital. Imagine if your child started life and they've got $700,000 in a trust fund to invest in their business. That literally would mean that the fact that you cut Starbucks out of your life in order to prepare for your children, that literally could mean that they could go their whole life without ever having a boss. They could go their whole life without ever having to work for anybody but themselves. You can literally change a life by cutting Starbucks or McDonald's value meals out of your budget. That's how powerful capital accumulation can be if you do it consistently. Joseph Green, achievement, accumulation, skills before thrills. I love it. I think you should have both. Personally, I don't think you should live a totally Spartan life if you don't want to. In fact, I think it makes investing less fun if everything is serious all the time. If everything is always hard. I don't want a life that's not enjoyable. I think you can do both. I think the key is balance. What happens is people don't have balance. This is like when I was in college. I made straight A's. I was absolutely positively just a torrentially good college student, even though I was a very, very bad high school student. And the reason I was a torrentially good college student was not because I was smarter than my classmates. It was for two reasons. One, because I think like an investor. I was thinking at the age of 20, what can I do with my life right now that's going to make my life easier when I'm 40? What can I do right now that's going to make life easier when my baby daughter grows up and becomes a human being, or a full-grown human being, and needs something from her daddy? That was one thing. The other thing was that a lot of people lived under this myth that in order for me to make straight A's, I had to just not have any fun. And I told them, I said, I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't, I have more fun than most of my friends, largely because I'm not under any stress. Because I do my studying in advance. I just knock it out. I don't wait till the night before the test where I can't get any sleep. And, I mean, I hate that feeling. Staying up all night, done took no dose or whatever, drinking all this coffee and the coffee's not even working, haven't took a shower and you're still not ready for the test, trying to remember all this information because you tried to shove a month's worth of information in your brain overnight. That doesn't work. So at 18, I realized, I said, well, if I'm going to get ready for the test, if I study hard now, 3 weeks before the test, that's just the same as me studying hard the night before the test. The only difference is if I do it now, I'll have 3 weeks for the information to sink in. I'll get ahead of the class because I'll know the information a week or two before everybody else. So when the teacher would say, okay, we're having a test in a month that's going to cover these 6 chapters, I would literally jam. I called it jamming. When people did cramming, I would joke and say, I'm going to jam. What I would do is after the previous test, I would literally read all the chapters in advance that I was going to have to read for the next test. So I would come into class. I literally knew everything before the teacher taught it, which made me look like a genius, even though I only knew something that everybody else was going to know in 5 minutes after the teacher explained it to them. So the teacher saw me as the best student. Also, I was ready for the test. So when it came time for the exam, I've already read the chapters 2 or 3 times. The information has sunk in. So the night before the test was just a review session for me. I'd just be going through my notes, kind of looking around. I'd be on the basketball court the day of finals, and people would be like, "Why are you on the basketball court? You got finals?" I was like, "I already prepared for finals. I'm ready. I made A's on all my finals." So my point here is that that in life in general, and that philosophy, I kept that with me in everything I do. To this day, I'm still the same guy. Um, and so I would say in life in general, pick up the skills, but don't think you have to let go of the thrills. In fact, the thrills are better when you have the skills. You work hard now. You do things now that no one else will do, so that later on you can do things that other people can't do. So just think of it that way. Think of it as a balanced kind of framework, not as an all or nothing kind of framework. So that's I hope that's helpful to you. Okay, Philippe says, "Yeah, you said my name." Yes, I did. Okay, all right, Beyonce. I said your name. You happy now? I'm messing with you, Philippe. All right. Let's see. Latoya's from Markham. All right, Markham. Is that Illinois? I think it's Illinois. Howard is from Atlantic City. All right, love Atlantic City. Adam Holloway. What is the best way to promote a sci-fi book based on the Black community? Hmm. Well, number one, in the Black Business School, if you go in there, you will find that we do have a class. In case you want to know like detailed information on this and you want ongoing kind of consultation, Dr. Tyra Selden is a literary professor who has a PhD in literature, and she teaches a class on how to make a living as a writer. And so that includes writing books, selling books, getting people to know about your books, all that stuff. And what I believe is that when you write books, I'm a big believer in publishing things yourself. I'm a big believer in creating your own publishing company or having things done independently. I'm not a big fan of going to these literary agents and hoping and praying that they give you an opportunity, because 99 times out of 100 they don't. They don't pay attention to you. And it's a waste of your time because you invest all this time going to all these meetings and following up with people and all this stuff, and you could be spending that time building your own. Um, so anyway, with that being said, if I had a sci-fi book based on the Black community, I would literally ask myself before you create the book. And I had a conversation like this with the filmmaker who made the film Black Friday, which is a great film about Black economic empowerment. We're actually going to serve as an affiliate and help them distribute that film. Um, One of the things that we talked about was he said, before I made this film, I had to think carefully about who my audience is. Who's going to buy this film? Who's going to want to see it? And he said, then at that point, I had to figure out how to get access to that audience. Where's that audience located? And so I said, I really like the way you think. I said, because a lot of filmmakers, they put the cart before the horse. They make the movie and then figure out who's gonna watch it. And if you make the film the wrong way, you're not gonna have any kind of demographic. In fact, he talked about a guy who made a movie about um, I think it was about the Black Christian church, but it was from an atheist perspective. And he said, "How many black atheists do you know?" And I said, "A couple, but not a whole lot, not a critical mass, not enough to sell a film." And so, anyway, so if you're writing the book like that, I would ask myself, what makes my book unique? What are the unique selling points? What things can I use as headlines on other content that will make people want to take a peek to see, what this book is about? Maybe your story is unique. Maybe maybe you got shot 9 times like 50 Cent, and you came back to life after being shot 9 times. Remember that launched 50 Cent's whole career. Think about it, he repeated it 50 million times. I got shot 9 times, right? Well, maybe you have something in your story that makes you unique. Maybe you were illiterate until a certain age. Things like that. And then what you might do is, if you got a book, you definitely want to have a Facebook fan page for you and then for your book. Even if nobody's on it, you just at that point you got to figure out how to get people on it. I would also create regular content. I would have a YouTube channel. I would have a Twitter and Instagram, and then a Facebook. And so you have all that stuff going. Then you populate it with content. I'm a big fan of content that doesn't take a lot of time. So YouTube videos, short. I do a couple things that I love to do that doesn't take much time. I love to do short YouTube videos, and I love to do short audio clips. Like, I have SoundCloud on my phone, a SoundCloud app. I would show it to you, but I'm not gonna waste your time showing you. You know what it looks like. But it's SoundCloud, where I can literally record a segment, like almost like a radio segment, and I hit load, and boom, it appears on my SoundCloud file. And then I do a short video, and I hit load, and it goes to my YouTube channel. And I have a Facebook app, and I hit load, and it goes to my Facebook page. And if you follow me on Facebook, what you will see is that literally about 45 seconds before I talk to you guys, I did a short video about my Grambling sweater. Why did I do it? I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to just say, give a shout out to Grambling, right? And it's cool. It fits my brand, right? You know me as a guy who supports the black community, who cares about the black community. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna talk about this Grambling sweater. So you see how the fun and the business can kind of be merged in a really cool way. But of course, as I'm talking about the Grambling sweater, I'm also gonna mention, hey, check out the Black Business School. I think you guys will like it. I'm gonna, you're seeing me. I am a brand. Every person that's a public figure is some kind of a brand, and you have to be conscious of that, right? So I would just find little ways to talk about things that link to the core. The core is that you're a sci-fi writer who wrote this cool sci-fi book for the black community, and so everything can come back to that. So everything that you do, you could say, you know, hi, my name is, and I lost your name, and I'm so sorry, brother. But you can say, hi, my name is fill in the blank. I am the author of fill in the blank. And then you give people the information. And then at the end, you say, thank you very much. I am blank. Author of blank. You can find out more at www.blank.com. So in a way, what you're doing is you're giving things to the world, but everything has to be sponsored. All media is sponsored. Whenever you watch the football game, like the brother that was watching the Cardinals and the Vikings, every that football game is brought to you by somebody. Verizon, brought to you by Ford, right? Well, in this game, in this black entrepreneurial game, you don't have Ford and Verizon sponsoring you. Most likely, you're sponsoring yourself. Now, what's bringing this to you? Well, if you wrote a book, then this is being brought to you by the book, blah 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 blah. You don't say it like that, but that's what you're doing, because hopefully you have a model at some point where a certain percentage of the people who see you will like you and want to be connected to your brand on a more deeper level, right? On a more deeper level. That was wrong. You know what I mean? On a deeper level. I didn't need to say more deeper level. In a deeper way, right? So effectively, if you want to understand the crux of a lot of how I do things, that's what it is. I really, truly, when I get on the internet and I really look like I'm having fun, it's because I'm really having fun. I'm really connected to what I know. I know black people. I know the black community. So I'm just in the black community. I'm a scholar, which I think gives me uniqueness. I have the ability to maybe take a conversation and elevate it to a place that adds value to people. And I'm always thinking like a giver. That's the key. That's the key to everything. You must always think like a giver, because the more you give to the world, the more the world will want to give back to you. Everybody ain't gonna give. I have people that if I mention the Black Business School and I tell them the class isn't free, they think I'm a crook. Oh, you're trying to rob the black community, blah 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 blah. They think every black business owner is a crook, right? And that's gonna happen. But there are people that I think look at that and they say, "Gosh, Dr. Boyce has given me so much. Um, Maybe I can support what he's working on. Maybe I can be a part of this, right?" And it's not like you're not going to benefit. I mean, stuff, the classes. I mean, you literally save thousands of dollars because I give you information that would cost a lot of money to obtain elsewhere, and it took me a lot of years and a lot of money to figure these things out. So you get the value there. But even if you didn't, by virtue of the fact that you are giving so much to the world, you'll find that your biggest fans, your biggest supporters, will want to give you something back. They'll have your back when you need them to, and then you'll make enough money to keep operating and keep functioning and doing what you do. And that's always been my goal. My goal is not really ever to I never cared much about being rich. I think wealth is important though, because I'm now having some bigger visions and dreams about things I want to do. Like I want to buy a big plot of land and some buildings and actually have a black tech incubator where I can actually get money to fund small black tech businesses, let the incubator take a percentage ownership, and bring the people in and actually have them around other tech entrepreneurs so that they can develop like the next black Facebook, the next black whatever. So building wealth is important to me for that reason. But for the most part, I never wanted to just have a bunch of money floating around. I take most of my money and I put it right back into the business, because I'm literally just living and enjoying my life and having fun and giving to the community in a way that sustains the giving. Because if if you don't sustain it, if you don't have money coming back in, because maybe you care nothing about money or whatever, then you're stuck in this situation where you're not going to be able to keep doing what you're doing. If I don't have money coming in, I can't keep doing what I'm doing, because I'm going to have to go eventually down the street to the white man and ask him to give me a job because I got to feed my kids. Do you understand? So ultimately, that's what you want to aim for. Just keep giving. Find out what your brand is. What's unique about this. I think being a black sci-fi writer is pretty cool. It's pretty rare. So you could literally have, things out there where you just say, I am black sci-fi writer, John Smith. And I'm so sorry I don't have your name, and I forget stuff very, very fast. You have to forgive me for that. I'm good at figuring things out, but I'm not always good at remembering things. My sister's the doctor; she remembers everything. Let's see here. Malcolm Norris. In Powernomics, Claude Anderson speaks frequently on the need for reparations. Do you agree? I agree on that we have a right to reparations. I don't know if we need reparations, nor will we be paid reparations. But you should never say never, because things always change. I mean, 5 years ago, I didn't think anybody would ever care about black men being shot down by the cops, right? I used to be, that was my biggest gripe. I used to be so mad because I said, these black men are being killed and nobody's saying anything. Nobody cares. Then suddenly, everybody's talking about Black Lives Matter. I mean, it really started with Trayvon and all this other stuff. So things can change, overnight. So a lot of times, you want to pursue things because you're laying the groundwork for what could be an opportunity later on. You know how they say that opportunity knocks once, and when it knocks, you better have your bags packed. Well, sometimes you got to pack your bags even if you don't think opportunity's coming to the door, but you have your bag packed just in case, because you don't want the opportunity to knock and for you not to have your bags packed. So I would say that when it comes to conversations like reparations, I say, yeah, let's keep having them. Let's keep getting in the faces of people who owe us money and telling them, you owe us. Yeah, here's proof. Let's keep spreading awareness that reparations are owed. I mean, how can you steal from a group of people for 250 years and act like you don't owe them shit? That is the craziest thing in the world to me. That is literally just a dastardly, disgustingly sick way to see the world. So they do owe us. There's no question about it. Now, the question is whether they're ever going to pay us, or whether or not we have the ability and the will to extract payment. Well, I would say that it starts with awareness, number one. So that's where people like me and Dr. Anderson can have conversations. If I sat down with Dr. Anderson, I brought him into the Black Wealth Academy as a guest. So I brought him in and I said, so Dr. Anderson, do you think that black people deserve reparations? He said, of course they deserve reparations. Let me explain why. And you know what he did? He did his thing. He's brilliant. And so creating that awareness, giving people information so that they have ammunition to make these arguments when they're talking to people in the office or whatever. And then also, you lay out reparations. I believe reparations as a community should be laid out as a condition for our forgiveness. If you want us to really move past the past, if you want us to go to you go with you to the Dr. King dinner and hold hands and sing "We Shall Overcome" and "Kumbaya," then you need to be ready to talk about reparations too, Mr. White Man, because you're not going to get my forgiveness for nothing. Even mobsters have that rule. If you want forgiveness from the family, you better show up with money. You better show up with some money to make up for what you did to the family. If you show up just with an "I apologize," no, we're gonna still have you whacked. You understand? So ultimately, I think that reparations should be laid out as a condition for our forgiveness. Like, yeah, we're gonna coexist with you. We're not gonna kill you. We're not gonna fight back necessarily. We're not gonna pull up our guns and start a revolution. But at the same time, we're certainly not gonna act like everything's okay, because our community's destroyed and you did it. Your ancestors did it. You own all this wealth because your ancestors stole it from us, and we're not gonna forget it. We're gonna teach that to our kids and grandkids, and this is gonna be a part of every inch of the black cultural tradition. First thing we're gonna teach our kids is how white people screwed you over. Then we're going to teach them how to overcome it, right? So I think that's perfectly fine. So here's the thing: you lay out the groundwork, you create the awareness, you set the conditions. Everybody's on the same page. So maybe one day there's an opportunity. Maybe one day you get Hillary Clinton in the White House, and she don't understand why black people haven't forgiven her for the fact that her husband put more black men in prison than any president in recent American history. Well, what do we say to Hillary? We say, we might forgive you, Hillary, but we're all thinking about reparations. What you got to say about reparations, Hillary? And then you may watch her squirm in her seat, and eventually Hillary understands power. Hillary responds to power. Hillary might come back and say, you know what? To get more votes in the black community, I am going to make a reparations proposal. I'll be the first president in American history to make a proposal to Congress that African Americans receive reparations. Now, is it going to go through? I don't know. It may take 100 years, 200 years, but I think the conversation should be had. I really do. It's a no-brainer to me. Um, if you so there you go. So you asked the second question about how to obtain it. That's one example. That's one example. So we could talk about reparations all day, but I definitely agree that it's important to talk about. Okay, Michael Griffith says, "Peace. How you doing, Michael? Good to see you." He says, in terms of cash for emergency savings, is it best to have it in cash equivalent form, i.e., savings or money market account, or is it best to go ahead and invest savings into stocks so that it's still working? You know what? I would say that with cash is you remember that Chris Rock movie that was really funny? I forgot, it was so funny. Chris Rock and Eddie Murphy, they make some of the funniest movies. Some of them don't do that well though. But anyway, Chris had this movie where he died and came back to life, but he came to life as an old white guy. I don't remember what it's called. I think it was Heaven After Earth or something. I don't remember what it's called. But anyway, so so there was one part where Chris was talking about insurance, and he was saying insurance should be called in case shit. You don't need it in case shit happen. You only need it in case shit happens. So cash is kind of like your in case shit. You want to have something that's liquid. Liquidity of an asset is measured by how quickly it can be converted into cash in case shit happens, in case you need money to pay for something. So you never want to have a portfolio that is really super illiquid. That puts you in a bad situation because there's nothing worse than to be sitting on $1 million asset and have no cash to even pay a $10,000 invoice. Because what can happen is that you could be forced into bankruptcy, which would require you to sell your $1 million asset at a substantial discount because it has to be liquidated quickly. Anything that gets liquidated quickly, meaning turned into cash quickly, is usually going to have a chop on the price to get people to pay quickly. If I live in a $2 million home and I'm behind on my taxes and I can't get the money to pay my taxes, then and I have to liquidate that home quickly, you think they're going to sell their house for $2 million? No, maybe they'll sell it for 1.5 or something like that. And in fact, a lot of people get rich by having liquidity and coming in when liquidity is rare. It's like having bottles of water when you're in the desert and people are thirsty, so they'll pay anything for water, so you control the game at that point. There were people with liquidity who came in and made a killing in Detroit because they're buying whole entire city blocks. People in Australia are buying entire city blocks in Detroit because they see that this is a struggling city with little liquidity. There are many other examples, like Warren Buffett takes advantage of a lack of liquidity with major corporations. When he sees a company struggling, he can identify why the company's struggling. He tries to figure it out. He says, okay, is it because they have bad management? Is it because just they had an unfortunate experience and the stock market overreacted? Is it because they need a cash injection and they can't get capital or whatever? So if he sees a liquidity problem, then Warren Buffett comes in with liquidity and buys this company on the cheap and makes it strong and whole again because he sees the company as a fixer-upper. So ultimately, you want to think very carefully when you start your business or just in your life, because your home is your first small business, in case you don't know that. Your life and your home are your first small business. And if you manage that small business incorrectly, it's going to be hard to build another business. So that's why when I tell people, when you're choosing who you marry, when you're choosing how you raise your kids, when you're choosing how to run your household, all that you have to think about that in a business or a framework to make sure that it doesn't become so disruptive that it inhibits your ability to build something else. Like I say that to these brothers out here, these young guys making baby after baby after baby after baby, and I'm like, okay, you've already effed up your first small business, so you're not going to be able to build nothing else. Don't even come to my Black Wealth Bootcamp. You need to go to the penis control camp or the child support camp because you're going to be broke for the rest of your life. Like, your ability to do much of anything now is disrupted because these choices you've already made are going to just be almost like a virus in terms of your ability to do anything else. So ultimately, you want to think about that, and liquidity is an important part of that. So always think about, how much money do I have that's being flipped? Dame Dash uses that term about flipping. Dame teaches a class in the Black Business School with me. You should check it out. It's at intelligentbossmoves.com. Um, I'll give you guys the link. But yeah, so you want to ask yourself, okay, how much of my money am I flipping? Meaning, how much money is in illiquid investments, and how much of my money can I get access to overnight? You don't want so you might have a ratio like 10%. You may say if I have 100,000 in investments, if I have 20,000, 2,000, 10% of that should be in places where I can get the money quickly. It doesn't have to be in cash, but it has to be in something that's pretty liquid. But the good thing though is that the stock market is relatively liquid. You buy stock in major corporations, it's going to be pretty liquid. The only problem you have to worry about is that stock prices go up and down. But if you buy big stable companies like GM and Ford and stuff like that, you'll see the range of their stock price doesn't evolve very much over time. So you can always go to your Ameritrade account, hit sell some stock, get that cash, and use that to pay for whatever financial emergency you have. All right, so let's see here. Christian R. Dr. Boyce, do you think that working in the same space as big companies like Uber is a good idea? What are the pros and cons, and how would you do it if you were going to do it? I'm one of the members of the founding team for CrazyRide.com. Okay. Now, what is Crazy Ride? Let me see. Let me Google. I'm gonna Google you real quick. Let's see here. CrazyRide.com. I'm gonna say this as I look up Crazy Ride. I'm gonna tell you, competing with Uber. Um, my cousin would say competing with Uber is a motherfucker. Uber is absolutely just a behemoth, a beast. The way they do business is so extraordinary. Um, in that they are so good at getting into markets that other people can't get into. They went to New York City and they had the mayor of the city say we don't want Uber here. And Uber still got into New York City. Every city they go to, the cab drivers don't want them there. They go to cities like Las Vegas, and the cab drivers threaten to kill the Uber drivers and break their legs. They still get there. I went to Europe. I went to England, Paris, and Spain this summer. In England, I took Uber. In Paris, I took Uber. In Spain, I took Uber. It was all on my app. Uber is amazing, and they were there within 5 minutes. It looks like from Crazy Rides though. What I would look for is I would look for a way to see how your brand distinguishes itself from Uber. So you're not trying to go head to head with Uber. You're just saying, hey, look, we do a few things Uber doesn't do. And you know what? I actually like Crazy Rides. I think you can survive because I see that you guys do long distance trips of over 45 miles. That means maybe you can market to college students. You can go. Let's see now going local, getting a ride around the city. That might be a little tough because then you are head to head with Uber. But you mentioned taking tours of cities. I don't know that Uber does that. Getting picked up. Okay, Uber does that. But you do at least a few things that are different from Uber. It looks like, and I don't know if this is your company. I assume it's not your company. Maybe you work with the company, but then again, it could be yours. But either way, I like it. I think you can find your lane. You just have to make sure that you understand when uh, the importance of avoiding going head to head with the big boys. It's kind of like going to war. When the Revolutionary War took place, the Americans knew they couldn't fight head to head with the British with a traditional fighting style. They had to go guerrilla. They had to kind of pick and choose their spots, and that's kind of what I think you want to do is pick and choose your spots. And if you pick and choose your spots, maybe you can get the scraps that Uber can't quite pick up. And I know it sounds kind of bad, makes you feel like a scavenger, but I'm sorry. I mean, if you're in the jungle and the lion shows up to eat the dead deer, and you want to eat too, and you're as big as a squirrel or whatever, you don't run up and try to take the lion's food because he's going to eat you too. You understand? So maybe you wait till the lion eats and then you eat what the lion leaves behind. That could work. All right. I know that sounds just like such a punk, like such a wimpy way to go about doing business, but you gotta be smart enough to know, as they said in that song, "The Gambler." You gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them. All right, Fernando. The past 2 years have been really tough. I went from winning awards for my work ethic, to being laid off and not being able to get a job. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I've even reached out to a former colleague, but they all have turned their backs on me. Can you suggest some ideas? I really need some guidance. Fernando, I can just tell you, corporate America is not a good place to leverage your future. I just don't think these companies, they don't have any loyalty. I mean, these hoes ain't loyal. These companies, they really aren't. You dedicate your life to them, you give them everything, and they just make adjustments. They don't care about the human factor. I would look for to create options for myself. We talked about little things like being an Uber driver. So if you got that car in the driveway, that might be a good way to make some money. As far as the former colleagues who've turned their back on you, um, I would you got to move on and find new colleagues. There's always another world, another. There's always, no matter what life you're living, there's always another life you could be living somewhere else. No matter who your friends are, there are always other people you could have in your circle of friends. So never ever get to the point where you think that what you left behind is all you got. That's really important. You got to look outward and look upward and look at the future. Don't look backward, don't look down, and don't look at the past if the past is not giving you what you need. Because the more time you spend focusing on what you don't have, the less time you can spend seeing all the possibilities that may lay in front of you. A lot of people go through life like that. They spend all their time looking at the past, looking at what they lost, looking at what they don't have anymore, and it leaves them debilitated. You never get to move forward from that. Okay, Jamal says, what is the difference between ETFs and mutual funds? Well, they're very, very similar. ETFs are exchange traded funds. What is an exchange traded fund? An exchange traded fund is something you can buy actually on the stock market that tracks a specific index for you. For example, there are ETFs for the S&P 500. So let's say that you want to take all the guesswork out of buying stock, and you just say, hey, I just want something that's going to track the Dow. I just want something that's going to just when the Dow goes up, I want to make money. When the Dow goes down, I'll lose money. I just want to follow the Dow. I don't want to try to pick the right companies because I don't want to get into all that. Well, you can buy an exchange traded fund that tracks the Dow. You can buy an exchange traded fund that tracks what's an index of small stocks is doing. You can buy an exchange traded fund that tracks what international stocks are doing. So an ETF, there's no sort of like mutual funds have managers that are picking the right stocks and trying to make the right guesses on what's going to do well. ETFs don't have all that. ETFs are just like you buy it, it tracks an index, and that's it. So I would say I'm not sure exactly where it stands now, but I think that ETFs would have like a lower transaction costs and things like that. Mutual funds tend to charge a fee for you to be included. Now, how does a mutual fund work? Basically, most people don't have the time to sit and analyze stocks all day. So what they do is they set up situations where you'll have a group of fund managers who are experts who went to school for this, and they'll collect money from a lot of people. It's also a little bit like crowdfunding. So they'll collect $1,000 from this person, a million from that person, 100,000 from that person, and they pile it up and they'll create this $1 billion fund. And they'll spend the whole day figuring out where to put pieces of this $1 billion fund. And they claim that by pulling everything together, everybody's able to make a little more money than they would if they were trying to do it on their own. And some theories support that idea. So that's how a mutual fund works versus an ETF. Okay, so let's see. Michelle says, "Yep, Bernie took everyone down. Yes, he did." PJ, hey PJ. Oh, the code worked. I'm so happy to hear that. PJ is my personal cheerleader, y'all. I love PJ, and I love Michelle, and I love all of y'all. But these are people that just show up and they just nag me every day. But I love it. I'm just kidding. Michael Griffith, can I buy stocks in Africa? I'm betting on black. You know what? I'm not really sure what the status is on stock markets in Africa. I know that there are ways to buy stock in Africa. I remember working with a guy named Lema Sinbet at University of Maryland 12, 13 years ago, who was talking about helping to develop stock markets in Africa. I know the markets are not as great as they are in other countries, but there are ways to do that. But what you have to be really careful about is making sure whatever market you pick, that you're picking what they call a liquid, well-functioning market, and that's a market where everything's going to be on the up and up. Remember I don't know if you guys remember this, but one thing we talked about is that when the way a stock gets valued is all based on information, and a big function of that information is based on transparency and consistency, which is kind of a risk measure. So think about it like this: how comfortable would you be if you were giving me your money and I was running a company and I told you nothing? I filed no reports. I didn't tell you what I was doing with that money. I could be spending it on my mistress. I went behind this curtain and just took your money and did whatever I wanted with it. You would probably not feel so safe doing that, right? But what if I said, I'm going to invest your money and I'm going to show you everything? I'm going to give you complete transparency. You can come in, you can see what we're doing, you can read the reports, I'll answer your questions, all of that stuff. Well, that would make you feel more comfortable, right? Well, the thing is that the price of a company's stock is largely dependent upon that form of transparency and that form of consistency, right? When a stock has transparency and consistency, it's typically going to have a higher value than a company that has no transparency, no consistency, and a lot of risk. Well, that actually extrapolates into an entire market. If you look at world stock markets around the world, markets that have a lot of transparency, consistency, and low risk tend to have higher values than markets that have very little transparency, very little consistency, a lot of volatility, and also a lot of risk. It can even be political risk. There are some countries where you can invest your money and the government could decide we're just going to take over this company. We're just going to own it. It's ours. We're taking it. Right? This has happened to investors. This has happened to people on many occasions. So countries where that kind of thing tends to happen, where there's a lot of political risk, well, they don't get a lot of investors. A lot of people are in a rush to give money to places that where the government might step in and just take everything, right? So the New York Stock Exchange tends to do pretty well because there's a lot of that transparency, a lot of that consistency. There's very low political risk. President Obama's not going to create a law tomorrow saying we're taking over every corporation in America. So people feel comfortable putting their money here, and when there's more money flowing in, it increases the prices of the assets. Do you understand? So when you're investing in a third world country, Africa or anywhere else, look for these factors. Make sure you do your research to make sure that you don't send over a bunch of money and then have somebody tell you, "Oh, sorry, we lost your money." And you're like, "Well, what happened? What, can I see a report?" And they're like, "No, we don't issue reports." Or here's a report. We're gonna give you this report, and it's full of fake information, right? Because we have no regulatory body here that's going to make sure this information is accurate. That's why the Securities and Exchange Commission exists, is to increase confidence in the stock market. They are very, very focused on making sure that confidence is always strong, because when confidence starts to drop, prices start to plummet. I could literally lead to $1 trillion drop in economic value in the American Stock Exchange by doing something that creates a lack of confidence in the market. A terrorist attack reduces confidence. A run on banks reduces confidence. Crazy information. If somebody releases misinformation, they say Mark Zuckerberg says that that Facebook is a fraud and that no one should sign up for his company. Well, guess what? Facebook's value is going to drop from 300 billion to about 250 billion in a matter of seconds. So that those factors really play an important role. So make sure you look for that when you invest overseas. Christian asks. We already answered that question, Christian. Sorry. Okay, Michelle mentions that she says, I had a friend who was a drug dealer that got killed and his whole family went down, including the mom, and got 20 years for keeping the drug books. Yep. That relates to what we were talking about earlier about how the feds can be when it comes to that money. I mean, it's just, it's scary. It's really scary. Let's see here. So we'll answer 2 or 3 more questions, then I'll let you guys go. Crystal says, I couldn't afford an HBCU either. My debt proves that. Yeah. I mean, student loan debt is a severe epidemic. It's one of the great challenges that we're faced right now as a country. Student loan debt is what they call a bubble. It's one of the bubbles in the American economy, and a bubble is something that could easily burst. That means that if that market for student loan debt suddenly becomes unstable, it could really cause a ripple effect through the entire economy. It hasn't burst yet, but what's happening is the default rates are slowly going up. A large percentage of former college students are just not paying the loans back because they're like, we don't have the jobs that pay enough money to pay back this much debt. And a lot of jobs, the good jobs, a lot of them have been shipped overseas. But American consumers are used as a source of cash for corporations that will make a product like the Air Jordans or whatever in other countries, but for $10, $16, but sell them in the United States because Americans have an addiction to consumption and Americans have an extreme willingness to take on extra debt to maintain a particular lifestyle. So what happens is you ultimately do become a slave to that debt. And the only thing that I'm afraid of now is that one day we'll get to a point where the corporations that own our government will go to our politicians and force them to write laws that say, if you don't pay your debt, we're going to put you in jail. And then at that point, we truly will be slaves to debt. We truly will be slaves. Either pay the debt or go to jail. They'll treat it just like child support. Don't think that that can't happen. So you got to be real careful about debt, student loan debt, especially when you send your kids to college. I'm a big fan of either state schools, which tend to be far cheaper than private schools, or if you send them to good entrepreneurship programs like the ones that we have here in the Black Business School. I've seen a lot of people start off and do really well doing that kind of stuff. I just did a business deal with a young guy. I always say that he was 23, and I found out he's actually 29, but he didn't go to college, and I'm going to pay him a lot of money to help me with something because he has a skill. If you have a skill, then that kind of nullifies a lot of the whole need to have a degree. A degree is only a proxy to say that you have skill, right? It's like I can't really prove that you have skill. Like if I know how to build a house, I can show you a house that I built, right? But if I'm a manager, like let's say I want to come to your company, I want to do management, like that's pretty vague. So what do I have to show you that I have the skill? Well, I have a piece of paper, you know. But when you talk about entrepreneurship exposes you. If you're a person that's got paper and no skill, then go try to run a business, and your customers will tell you if you have skill or not. When you have no sales, that will show that you have no skill. So ultimately, I think there are a lot of ways to be successful. In fact, I encourage my kids. When I talk to my own kids, I tell them don't even pick a career. Like, don't even tell anybody like what you do for a living. Like, you can tell them what you actually do, but don't define yourself. Don't say I'm an accountant, I'm a teacher, I'm this, I'm that. You don't have to do that anymore. Just you could just say, well, you know what? I run a website. Like my daughter. My daughter does hair. She blogs. She has a show, on social media. She does a lot of different things. So she's not in a box anymore, and she's very, very happy not being in the box. So don't feel like you got to get in a box. Don't put your kids in a box. You don't have to do that. Um, let's see. Marvin says that he purchased his first 10 shares in Ameritrade. Way to go, Marvin. Everybody, before Christmas, please go buy some stock for your kids. Just something cheap, like $10 worth, $20 worth, $50 worth. Just get started, get in the habit, make it part of your family's culture. That's really, really important. In fact, you guys know about the Black Wealth calendar that we're selling, which I'm sharing the link to that with you in case you're interested. We sold a lot, almost over 1,000. So apparently, a lot of people are interested in building this as part of their culture. So check it out. It's got a theme for every single month. What we want to do for next year is we're going to name every month after a wealth building theme, whether it's cash flow, whether it's saving for retirement, whether it's building a business, whether it's taxes, whether it's something. What was it? Credit repair, budgeting, things like that. So that's the rush for next year. That's the goal. Okay, let's see. Michelle says, good. Her son chose Howard over Harvard and graduated on time. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty amazing. Summer says, that's right, Spelman. I love Spelman. Man, that's a great school. Let's see here. A couple more questions. Willie Slaughter. How many times does the Black Wealth Academy meet? The Black Wealth Academy meets just like the boot camp. We meet twice a week. We have class, and then we have office hours. We have the private Facebook group. All right, we also have tons of content that you can get, in the class, so you can continue your own learning. The cool thing about the academy is that because it's longer, we're able to do more stuff. We're able to go deeper into theories. If people ask me for a specialized lecture on a certain topic, I can do that. Also, we have really cool guests. We've had Tariq Nasheed, who built, who created the whole live. I'm sorry. Hidden Colors. I was saying Living Color, but that would have been bad. The whole Hidden Color series. We brought in Dr. Claude Anderson. We brought in leadership expert Nicole Price. We brought in a lot of different people that can add value to your ability to build something of your own. And that's what I respect. I respect black people who build things. I don't really necessarily care if a white man gave you a great job. I mean, I'm happy for you. I think that's good. But honestly, deep down, I'm kind of thinking, gosh, that's pretty kind of limited thinking a little bit. It's not to be critical, but it's kind of saying, well, I'm not really impressed with the person who gets the job as much as I'm impressed with the person who created the job that they just gave you. That's the real boss. That's the man of your house. You might not be the man of your house, so you got to really look at that in an honest way. But it's no disrespect to those of you who got promotions this week. I'm happy for you, but build something of your own. That's what I think will matter to your children in the long term. Michael Lange says, I do not know how to speak to you by microphone. This is my first time, and I just want to know how. Well, speaking on microphone with a class this big, by the way, is a little tougher to do. So we can't really do it now. Sometimes in the academy, especially when the class size is below 20, 25, or 30, I can take individual speakers in, but in a class this size, it's difficult to do. Let's see here. You want to know how you can refer someone as a mentor on a hotel industry, has a mentor like you did with Dame Dash. Refer someone as a mentor in the hotel industry. Well, you know what, Mikhail, I think you asked that question in the Dame Dash class, and we did answer that. We put the answer in your class materials. So if you don't see it, just shoot me an email, and I'll find it for you, and I'll send you the link. But go through and look through because we actually did answer that question on how to find a mentor. I mean, basically, what we were talking about was, um, when you pick people as your mentors, first thing is you don't always have to tell people that they're your mentor. You just kind of watch them, and observe what they do. Also, you want to think about mentorship not so much as a charitable event. You don't walk up to somebody that's really busy that has a lot of stuff that they're trying to do and say, "Hey, will you mentor me? Like I can't." Okay, Craig says my audio's breaking up. I hope it's not breaking up too bad. You don't walk up and kind of say, "Hey, I don't have anything. I can't offer anything. But and I'm not doing anything that's really working. But can you mentor me? Because I really need your help." Well, people might give you a little bit of charity, but charity is not sustainable. They're not going to always be able to give you the amount of time that you're really going to need. They're not going to be able to spend the time with you that's really going to make you good at what you want to do. And I go through that because every day, 10 people ask me to mentor them every single day. And so the best way, and I thought about this and I was thinking, what's the best way that people get actually learn from me? Well, the people that learn from me are the people that work with me, the people that bring something to the table, that say, I'm willing, I can dedicate 30 hours a week, and I'll, maybe if they want to get paid, they don't ask for a lot of money, or if they have a skill or something like that. I mean, I can't have that many people on my team, but the people that are on my team that are really grinding with me every day, they have continuous access to me because we're always trying to solve a problem together. We're always working on something, and they get to see exactly how we do things, right? And so I would say that if you approach anybody as a potential mentor, come bearing gifts. Like come there and say, here's what I'm going to do for you. Here's what I can do to help you. Here's what you can do to help me. And then it becomes a trade. It becomes easier for it to work. And I learned that in my PhD program because I thought that professors should want to work with us because we were the students and because that was their job. And I learned real quick that if you weren't offering anything to those guys, they weren't going to work with you. They were just going to blow you off, or they were going to give you a few minutes, but then they had work to do. So just understand that everybody's got work to do. So keep that in mind. Okay, so PJ says the corporate ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. Even if you get to the top rung, you can never own the house. That's really true. Yeah, I'm not that big on climbing a ladder to get to the top of somebody else's house. That's a little bit strange. Let's see here. We'll do a couple more questions, then we'll take off. Um, let's see. I'm looking for. Okay. Howard Tibbs asks about Amazon delivery jobs. Yeah, well, I think the Amazon delivery jobs are a good way to make extra money too. I shared that link on the bootcamp page. Amazon's now doing delivery. Amazon's making big moves. If you want to understand how a small company grows into something special, go look at Amazon, read their history, and just read how they grew. They're also an interesting, compelling lesson about the valuations in stock markets and how they occur. Amazon had many years where they weren't making a penny, but they were worth billions. And people were like, why is this company worth over $1 billion when they haven't made any money? Well, because people were looking at future revenue generating possibilities. That's one interesting thing about Amazon. So they saw the future and they saw what this company would be worth. The other interesting thing about Amazon is that most of the money that they make doesn't even go to them. Most of the money they make, they have to give it to their affiliates, to people that sell products on their platform. And that goes back to what I was telling you guys about partnerships, affiliate programs, and how that can be a great way to boost your business. That's why I tell you, if you have a great company and it fits my audience, I want to be an affiliate for your product. When I have a great product, like the Black Wealth Bootcamp and the Black Business School, we have an affiliate program. You can be an affiliate and tell your friends about it, and they sign up, then you get a percentage. It might be your first step to getting off the plantation. So that's the other interesting thing about Amazon. Another interesting thing about Amazon, as they are growing and literally conquering the freaking world, is that Amazon is now at a point where they are about to literally eliminate their need for UPS, FedEx, or the United States Postal Service. There are people that are low key speculating that Amazon is trying to create its own fleet of trucks and planes so that they can do their own delivery with their own stuff. They're gonna have trucks, planes, cars, drones, regular drivers that are similar to like an Uber kind of thing. Amazon is killing the game right now. Amazon, in fact, they recently there was some big news. I owned Amazon. I didn't own the stock. I had some stock options, and suddenly I went to my portfolio and I saw I made a couple $1,000s that day. And so of course, I was smiling, and I was like, well, what's going on? My Amazon options just shot through the roof. And then I looked up the news. Whenever you see your stock price move up or down, there's always news. Stock markets move based on news and information. What was the news of Amazon? So I looked it up. The news was that Amazon's data services company, where they do this cloud data storage for companies, this little side business that everybody thought wasn't a big deal, turns out that this cloud storage, their side hustle, was worth $160 billion. And everybody's like, holy crap, like they're controlling this game over here too. So Amazon to me is fascinating because they're just a company that just has this extraordinary vision. I don't know if this is all coming from the CEO Bezos, but that is an awesome company. In fact, they bought the Washington Post. Bezos, he bought the Washington Post, and this is what's funny. This is how liquidity can allow you to can allow a mobile thinker to take advantage of a dinosaur. The Washington Post used to be worth about $2.5 billion in the late 90s before the internet really got into heavy use as a source of media. $2.5 billion. Do you know that Bezos was able to buy that company a few years later for 250 million, for literally about a tenth of what the company was worth? Because you had dinosaurs that didn't understand. You had this family that was making all this money from this newspaper that didn't understand the importance of adjusting to the times. So they didn't adjust to the times and they got hammered. The internet has led to a massive wealth transfer from backward thinking people to forward thinking people. That's why you want to be on the forefront of technology, education, understanding what's happening in the world so you can be one of the people that's taking advantage of the fact that there are people who are stuck in their ways and aren't willing to adjust. It's happening in the black community too. Ebony magazine is going through that a little bit. Ebony's hanging on. I love Ebony. I've written in Ebony many times, so I don't have nothing negative to say about Ebony or the management per se. But I'm telling you, they've missed out on some major opportunities because they were so used to making money the old way that they didn't sort of think about how to make money the new way. And some of these other companies like Essence, I mean Essence is gone. Essence ain't ours anymore. That belongs to white folks. BET belongs to white folks. So ultimately, the inability to adapt is it gives you the keys and the tickets to your own economic extermination. So how much you learn is important. How much education you have matters. But what matters more is your ability to consistently be educated in a dynamic fashion and to consistently be able to adapt. That's it. I'm done. I'm gonna let you guys go. All right. So don't forget, join the Black Wealth Academy if you want to jump in and stay connected in this class. I'd love to keep teaching you. I hope that I'm proving my value. I'm literally sharing with you all the things that I think will help you be successful. I will invest in you in whatever way that I can. I love all of you and I appreciate you, and it's certainly an honor teaching you. And this is our last office hours for the Black Wealth Bootcamp, and so I hope that you'll help me in terms of spreading the gospel of Black economic empowerment and really pushing your family members to elevate our game when it comes to how we think about wealth building and ownership and all these other things, because I really think that we're in the middle of this amazing cultural revolution in our community. And I'm telling you, in 50 years or maybe a little more, 50 years, you're going to see a whole different black community. You're going to see literally millions of black people that are focused on wealth building and ownership, and all the things that I'm saying that just sound so radical and revolutionary now. It's going to be old hat. It's going to be standard education for most black kids in America. That's the vision I have, and I know that that's the vision we're going to achieve. But I need your help in making that happen. So I love all of you guys, and it was great seeing you. If I didn't get a chance to answer your questions, I'm going to put up another Ask Dr. Boy status, and I'm going to answer the last one as well. And just put your question in there, okay? And I promise you I'll get to them. So take care, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.